Uh, Russ is not here.
What do we do?
Yes.
Up to you, Mr. Chair, if you want to give him a few minutes.
Get going.
Okay.
All right. I'd like to call to order the special meeting of the Historic District Commission for the City of Saugatuck here on May 7th, 2024. Could we have a roll call, please, Sarah? Could you help us with that?
Straker,
Here?
Patterson,
Here.
Canarza,
Here.
Donahue,
Here.
Gardner, Godfrey. Here.
We have a quorum. Thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda, any additions or deletions?
None from staff, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes. I don't believe we have minutes, seeing this is a special meeting.
That is correct.
Welcome y'all, and everyone zooming in. Is there any public comment on the agenda items? And there's a limit to 3 minutes for those items.
One hand up.
Yes. Dan, I see your hand. Mr. Fox. Oh, we can't hear you. You're on mute.
Can you unmute, Dan?
Working on it.
There you
There we go.
There you go.
Good evening, Stork.
Hello.
Commission. I sent you a couple of notes, so I won't further go over that stuff, but I did hear something just today that surprised me. And I mean, it really surprised me. I am told by a couple of people now that there are one of the features of the playground, which then the playground, like I think everybody in the community supports the idea of the playground. But one of the features I was completely unaware of was that it has the feature of amplified audio of what I don't know sounds. I don't know if it's music or sound effects or whatever. In all of, and I admit that I was not present or online for all of the meetings about this, but I had never heard that feature discussed or disclosed or what have you. To me, in terms of the city, in terms of the character of the downtown, that's a dramatic no-go as far as I'm concerned. It'd be no different than if somebody was running ice cream trucks through town with amplified. We just wouldn't allow, I can't imagine that we'd allow that. Any case, I know this is not a question and answer period, but I bring it to your attention if you didn't know it. And I hope honestly, I hope I'm completely wrong and that's not a feature and can move on from there. But if it is, I would submit it for your careful review. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Anyone else? Yes. Hi, Catherine.
I sent you ahead of time. I'm going to read it because there are people here that don't have a copy. Let me begin by saying no one is against a children's playground. In fact, I participated in the last upgrade around 1995. Primary concerns are the proximity of equipment, ordinance compliance, which has been violated, survival of the trees, totally unattended at this point, and the overall footprint, mass, and safety. While some form of playground equipment is occupied, the public square or playground is not an authorized use in the Saugatuck zoning ordinance. Historically, a public square is a forum for debate, gatherings, marketplace. I provided you multiple definitions, none of which include playground equipment. The playground itself has no historical cultural value, nor is it a reflection of the community. Postulating such a yarn is merely another fairy tale. The current vision usurps the majority of green space and volume, size, and height. Throughout the process, it was understood the original footprint would be utilized and not expanded, nor were any measurements, scale of drawing, identifying neighboring properties. all of your visions showed a big field and a lot of extra land surrounding it. Not one of your presentations showed the sidewalk by my property with my physical asset abutting it. The definition of such was never explained, etc. The Veterans Memorial is dwarfed by overarching structures, jumbled gyms over 2 stories high. Measurements were never given. 21.7 inches, that's 2 stories high, with a fall drop of 12 feet. That was not discussed. Fill the center square. A noise produced by a xylophone, which was installed today, is against our noise ordinance. I'm surprised that our planning person, who was on board prior to Mr. Heiss leaving, did not note that. That was not brought to the attention. It was mentioned. I'll give Ms. Baldwin that, but it was never explained. There are approximately 8 instruments. Clarissa, would you play the one, please?
You have 10 seconds, Catherine.
Can you imagine that at 7:30 in the morning, which the ordinance, Mr. Cummins, does not provide for? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to say anything? Yes.
Hi, Chris Peterson, 742 Saugatuck. The first thing I'd like to just discuss is kind of some of the comments that have gotten kind of nasty in terms of going back to Catherine doesn't support the playground or doesn't like children. I don't think that has anything to do with it at all. That goes back to the old argument that if you didn't support the school bond, you didn't like children. That's the old bait and switch. That's like if we sold our boat, we didn't like Lake Michigan, or if the city council cut down the Christmas tree, doesn't like Christmas. That leads me to my second one, which I think there was a little bit of begging for forgiveness instead of asking for permission. The footprint has gone over what it was last approved for. I don't think there was discussion on the Christmas tree. I don't think there's been discussion other than the last thing that I heard was that there would be no trees removed, and there are. So I'm hoping that we'll take a little bit longer in the process to make sure that the violations of ordinances are checked, that the trees are kept there, or at least the ones that are maybe looking at being gone are saved as the best they can, and not violating any ordinances. Dan just brought up a new one that I hadn't known about. So again, there's a process. You don't get to pick and choose when you're on the city council. You have to go by the processes, whether they're complicated, long, or whatever. That's just how government works. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Hello.
Hello, Scott Dean, 544 St. Joseph Street. I attended the meeting of Post 137 of the American Legion. I'm a member there. Spoke with the adjutant and the post commander. Their primary concern is that the park is completed by Memorial Day, so we can have our normal ceremony there. They expressed no concern about the scale of the playground. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah. Hi.
Hi, everybody. Kelly Roach, 413 Hoffman Street. The support and energy surrounding the build has been incredible. The playground quality is exceptional and will be an asset for the community as a universally ADA compliant, all ages, safe, welcoming space for locals and tourists alike. Something that the majority of Saugatuck is proud of. The playground had unanimous approval from PPW, DPW, city staff, council, and HTC 8 months ago, after all meetings being posted in the public domain for many months prior to that. I trust that HTC will remember that all criteria have been met and approved, and we are only here again after this was oddly requested as part of the lawsuit settlement with the Maplewood Inn, not as a standard practice. I would like to remind everyone here that the old playground was rotted to its core, and while nostalgia is great, they don't build playgrounds like that anymore because they don't meet modern safety standards, ADA compliance, nor interest for a wide age range. Just because an individual doesn't like something doesn't make it against an ordinance, a code, or nullify our city processes. I ask HDC to let the playground be built to completion and let the joy and the laughter and the fun back into that space, because our children and grandchildren are not mere annoyances to our lives. They belong in our public spaces, as they are the best reasons to believe in a beautiful future for Saugatuck. The first popsicles were had by the kids at the park yesterday, and they are pumped for more good times. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Lauren Stanton, Lake Street, Saugatuck. I'm here for public comment as a citizen and as your mayor, as the item you're discussing tonight won't be coming in front of City Council. First of all, I just want to thank you all, to the members of the Historic District Commission, for your service to our community and making the time to be here for this special meeting tonight. We're fortunate to have a historic commission with years of experience and expertise, and members who understand what is in the Historic Commission's purview when it comes to new structures and neighboring properties. We thank you for approving the plans for the city's new playground when it originally came before you, and today as you go over specific areas that are getting a second look because of a settlement agreement. The playground was designed for children of all ages and physical abilities. For that reason, the features of play are spread out, so children in wheelchairs can easily access all areas of the playground. And isn't it wonderful that we build playgrounds today so all children can play? And that's why all of the features in this playground are spread out the way that they are. We've already started the community build, as you know, and it's incredible. The excavated areas will be filled in and landscaped, and when it's all said and done, it'll be the kind of park our community is proud of. Douglas and Saugatuck Township have built amazing new playgrounds, and finally, it's Saugatuck's turn. I hope you will approve the features that are in question tonight and help us finish this project so the children of our community and visitors to our community can enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lana DeYoung, Saugatuck Township, as about a month ago. Before moving to the township, I served on the Saugatuck Parks and Public Works Committee and was co-chair of the Village Square with Kelly. The community build over the last 2 days has been amazing, and our beautiful playground is taking shape. But there is a movement by some to stop the full implementation of the playground by throwing everything they think they conceive of against the wall to see what might stick. The attempt is to create alternative facts, no matter how far-fetched they are. I can speak to those I am intimately familiar with, being on Parks and Public Works Committee. They are claiming that the city's actions have violated PPW's goals for the project, goals which in no way have anything to do with the Historic Commission approval anyway. Needless, I feel a need to clarify why Parks and Public Works decided to keep the playground in the current location, as they are claiming. What that meant to us was on the northwest corner of Village Square, and not moving it to a different corner or some other location. Had nothing to do with remaining in the footprint. Second, it is also correct that one of our priorities on PPW was to maximize the existing footprint of the old playground. In fact, if you looked at the approved Sinclair rendering, and now as it's going in, it is readily apparent that we and they did a great job of maximizing the existing footprint, as we were able to fit equipment and required safety buffers within, without much unused space. That's what it meant by maximizing the footprint. Also note that option 11 rendering included additional equipment to the north of the old playground, a distinctly separate issue from maximizing the old existing footprint. It is claimed that the additional features are a significant expansion, when in fact it is only 15% larger. 15% never constitutes significant. This rendering never changed as it went through the entire approval process. Another priority was to keep existing trees, which we largely achieved, which unfortunately came into conflict with yet another priority, namely ADA compliance, known more broadly as universal design, which they never mentioned. A tree did need to be removed since universal design necessitates that there be room for wheelchair access. The tree in question was being watched by Public Works anyway, as there were signs of decline. It was a blue spruce, and there is an infection in those trees, and all of them are dying in the area. It would have had to been removed anyway. While it is sad to lose any tree, the vast majority of trees remain in Village Square, and the good news is that they will be replaced with 2 mature trees.
You have 10 seconds.
Yep. I urge you to reaffirm your original vote as it was based on sound process and consideration of factors within your purview. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? Zoomers? Yes, sir. Oh, sorry. Laura, do you want to go ahead?
Laura Durham, 747 Water Street. I'm just here because I'd like everyone to get along. I'd like, we have a taxpayer here and she's asking that it not move that close to her rooms. There's like 2.5 other sides still available. So is it possible to, instead of moving the extra equipment on her side, maybe on the back side? That's all I'm asking for. I don't want more litigation with my tax-paying dollars. I don't want to pay for damages. We're at a point right now where we can make it all work. And that's all I'm asking for is obviously a person who rents rooms needs it quiet. There's another old historic bed and breakfast that I understand is now a vacation rental. Same issue they're going to have. So I'm just asking, can we just play nice? And I want the playground more than anybody, but can we just work on it together? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sir, I saw you back here.
Barry Johnson, resident of Saugatuck on Main Street, just up the hill. Nobody's against playgrounds, but the scale and, some of the things that were approved, I don't think were vetted properly. There are ordinance violations that, some of the pro people haven't really gotten into the ordinance compliance. Such as if it is got amplified music, if there is sounds after 11 o'clock at night, which is an ordinance things. I don't know how you mute the xylophones and all that noise making stuff after 11 o'clock. Sound shall not be issued within 100 yards of a church. We do have a church on that square, Christian Science. The playing of radios, anything like that, whistling, yelling, singing, making any loud noise on the public streets anytime to annoy or disturb the quiet comfort or repose of any school, place of worship or office in any dwelling, hotel, or any other type of residence or anything in the vicinity. So there are some very specific ordinance things that's what you guys deal with. That have been violated by this approval. So, and just personally, I have some concerns about the outside the footprint of the original, which my understanding was always going to be within the original footprint, but that got changed, and I never saw the notice that was going to happen at a meeting. I am concerned about survival of the trees. I think Catherine's very well documented that those trees are going to need some tender, loving care to survive. And being a grandfather, I'm kind of worried about 12-foot drop when my 3-year-old granddaughter tries to climb up to that upper slide. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Oh, sorry.
Mark Klungel, 747 Water Street. Like everyone said, everyone wants a playground. It's a great thing to have in the park. At the last council meeting, I suggested that, rather than upset a business that's there, because businesses in this town are important and they should be respected and supported. Why don't we move the playground the other way and just close Main Street, a section of Main Street right there, and join the 2 parks, and you could expand the playground as far as you want. I mean, there are other ways to look at this versus fighting this out with a resident and a business owner in town. The one thing you can do is you have the power to screw your neighbor or screw a resident, but you have to live with that neighbor. You have to live with them onward. I think we need to find a better way to solve this problem, because the playground is important, but so is the businesses and the neighbors. So I think that we should look at this very differently than fighting this out. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, I didn't see anyone else electronically or physically raise their hand, so we will move to unfinished business, which I think there is none. Correct, Ryan?
That is correct, Mr.
Okay.
Chair. Yep.
And we'll move right into new business, which is the application at hand for Village Square Park Playground. I'd just like to start us off on this one, and then I'll turn it over to Ryan. So as we begin this application, I just want to remind the commissioners around the table, and for that matter, anyone who's joining the commission meeting tonight who maybe haven't participated in a HDC meeting before, just what our process is for reviewing applications. So our packet tonight is pretty big and has a lot of relevant content. And when we go around the table, I'd ask our commissioners to call out a page number for Sarah if you want more specific details so that everyone can see it on the screen and people in the audience and on Zoom know what we're talking about. Tonight's application is for additional elements to the plan this commission already approved. Per instructions by the city, we're hearing an application for additional features only that were part of the plans that were already approved. So ahead of tonight's meeting, each of us have received correspondence with opinions about zoning as it relates to the district, our mission statement, protection of trees and green space, historic photos, and even descriptions and definitions of shouting, whistling, and noise amplification. We've also received details about original intent of the playground design from the committee responsible. Because of these opinions, I'm just going to start us out by reminding our attendees and our commissioners what we do and what we do not do as evaluating applications. Our posted guidelines, which is a link on the city's website, is what this commission uses to make decisions on projects. This is an HDC commission, not a zoning commission, not a planning commission, and not city council. So I'll tee us up on what's included in our guidelines that's relevant for tonight. So within our guidelines, we're going to consider three things tonight, and that's what this group will talk about. First, we based every application on the U.S. Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic structures. These guidelines are posted on the website, and they're referenced in every application we get, in every packet we receive before every meeting. And in tonight's packet, we have specific guidelines that also include 4 specific ordinances that are related to those guidelines. Number 2, we look at contributing and non-contributing structures and apply guidelines accordingly. Per Williams and Works, which is the body that comes into different historic communities and evaluates what's contributing and non-contributing, the old playground was listed as neither. It had no designation. And finally, for new construction, we evaluate an application in part based on the streetscape around it. And using our guidelines, we evaluate its compatibility. This is what we're doing tonight, but we're doing it on the new features only. So for complete clarity on the other side of this coin, because so much has been swirling around, let me remind us what's not part of our guidelines and what we don't touch or address. First, while all of us, and I'm guessing all of us, celebrate trees and green space and always encourage an applicant to do the same, trees are neither contributing nor non-contributing resources. We're often very vocal as a commission in our desire to protect as much green space as possible. It should be noted that landscaping specifically is called out in our guidelines in section 4, subsection B2, as not being under our purview. Second, related to zoning, the district is part of zoning ordinances, but things like building height and building setbacks are established by zoning with consideration to the district, not by the HDC. Zoning, not the HDC, regulates land use. The HDC looks at guidelines to determine massing, scale, and streetscape compatibility. Said another way, zoning makes sure the basic requirements are met. The HDC, this group, makes sure they're compatible with the streetscape that existed before it. So our job is to make sure the additional elements we're reviewing tonight meet those requirements. Third, the HDC does not regulate noise. This is a downtown area, and because so many things are next to so many things, there's usually noise happening everywhere. Bottom line, the HDC doesn't have any say in the noise level of a playground during the day, or any more say than we have in the noise of Saugatuck around it at night. And finally, number 4, historic districts do not supersede universal design and universal standards. Personally, in my 25 years as a commissioner, commissioners have always worked hard to make sure properties within a historic district have accessibility to people of all or different abilities, including but not limited to people using wheelchairs or people with neurosensitivity. This is in line with 4th grader Charlie Benson's quote on page 164 of our packet, speaking to the advocacy for everyone's ability. And I might add that our Zoning and Planning Commission colleague members have a responsibility to know those standards as they react to decades-old ordinances. So with all that as a foundation, let's hear from the applicant. And we'll go around the table like we always do, asking clarifying questions or comments from each commissioner, and we'll seek to understand and learn more about the application.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Historic District Commissioners, for being here for a special meeting on a Tuesday. I know we just saw you last Thursday, so I appreciate you coming in this week as well. The city has submitted an application and a fairly lengthy packet to you with a request that you reapprove the additional features of the playground, which I'll touch on here in a moment to kind of walk you through those, which are located in the same location as they were on the plans that you actually had approved in October. With a couple of, with one exception related to the additional features and then one exception related to the main features. So on your screen here, you can see this is the playground footprint overlaid over a satellite image of the old playground footprint that was presented to you back in October. In fact, one of the folks from Sinclair Design, Jeremy, is here this evening, and I appreciated the work that his team did and actually kind of putting this together and overlaying this information on the previous playground footprint, so that the City Council, the Parks and Public Works Committee, and then you as Historic District Commissioners could ultimately see where what features were going to be predominantly within the previous footprint, and then which features of the playground were going to be outside of that. And so you see this kind of white solid line here. Can everybody see my pointer there where I'm pointing to? That white solid line there that you're seeing, that's the boundary of the previous playground footprint from the satellite imagery. So for this evening's purposes, the main features of the playground, when I refer to those, I'm referring to essentially anything, for the most part, everything that's south of that white boundary. So this tower structure here, this bridge here, this tower here, this tower down here, and then all the features down here with the exception of the canoe, which I'll touch on in a moment. All of those are considered the main features of the playground that are situated predominantly within the previous playground footprint. So this is for their purposes ultimately. So as long as I
stand up, see the screen?
See the mouse, is that what you can't see?
So
Yeah, the mouse.
Moving around.
yes.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Thanks, John.
So that white boundary is, yes, your previous playground footprint. So when we talk about a request to reapprove the additional features that are predominantly outside of the previous footprint, we're referring to features such as and this is in the northeast corner here, which is what's called a mini Jeepster. We're referring to, there's a mountain climbing feature in this area here. There's a feature called a Get a Grip, which is in this area. There's a net wall, which is in this area. And all these features here are actually attached to the tower and are kind of, my understanding, and again, we can turn it over to Sinclair Design for any particular questions that you might have, but they're all related to the main features and pieces of equipment to kind of transition down from those other features. There's a touched on there's a net wall here. There's a track ride here, which my understanding from Sinclair Design and the folks that worked on this, and I'll turn this over to Helen Baldwin here in a moment to kind of touch on more of the history. The track ride was a particular feature that folks desired. There's called butterflies and flowers, which kind of have a artistic and musical component to them that are in certain sections outside of the previous playground footprint. And then there's some pods that are kind of connected to and adjacent to these other features as well. So we're asking for your approval of the additional features, those that are predominantly outside of the previous playground footprint, with the exception this evening of the city is withdrawing our request for this spinner feature here in the northwest corner. As we've gotten into construction on the site, some concerns have come up with the location of the spinner being too close to the tree and the tree having an impact on the spinner. So we aren't seeking approval of that at this time. We're moving our request for that at this time. And then we'll further evaluate that, potentially bring something back to you at a later date if we'd like to construct that. We're also asking for your approval to move one of the main features. As a result of the settlement agreement, the main features tonight are not subject to reapproval tonight. All the main features are set and they're already being constructed. I assume many of you, all of you have probably been down to the site to take a look and I see you nodding your heads, yes, that you've been down to the site to kind of take a look at how it's coming along. We are asking for your approval to modify one of the main features and moving this canoe feature here on the west side to move that further south. Again, not to have an impact on trees in the area.
Ryan, are you still working through it?
I get more presentation, but if you have a particular question, yeah, okay.
Let you finish.
Okay. So we worked on a pretty comprehensive application packet for you to consider. We've presented you with, at least from the city's perspective, some narratives on how we believe that the ordinance requirements and guidelines, how the project meets those ordinance requirements and guidelines, things such as historical and architectural significance of the non-contributing resource of the Village Square Park and previous dilapidated playground, compatibility of the exterior of the structure and the space around it with the visual and historical context of the surrounding area. Provided some narrative on the impact of the exterior of the structure on the character and contextual aesthetic of the city, and then other factors that the commission might find pertinent. One of them we think that was important to consider was the previous playground's safety issues that we provided a report on as well. We also provided you with narratives as it related to the guidelines that your chair touched on as you were getting started. Things such as streetscape compatibility, architectural style, compatibility of siting and massing, consistent with how your other applications that come before you are handled. We submitted these application materials to David Jurasik, a consultant that reviewed the plans and provided his evaluation and of the guidelines from his perspective and his recommendation. That's before you this evening. Certainly you have a lot of correspondence that's before you. We provided you with a link to the owner's manual, which contains all of the specs related to the playground down to the actual bolt level. That'll show you every piece of this playground and all the nitty-gritty details of it. All of that was made available to you. There's a number of exhibits that are in the packet that kind of support the narratives that the city has submitted. I think with that, I'd like to turn it over to Helen Baldwin, who's the chair of the Parks and Public Works Committee and your mayor pro tem, to kind of just as a refresher. I know you kind of heard some more of the history and how this kind of came about in October. We think it's important just to kind of maybe touch on a couple of those things as it relates to presenting this to you once again for your reapproval. So.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
First, I want to thank all of you
for being here. I know that this process has been a lot more complicated than we would have expected. I want you to know I very much appreciate your time. I think while I have a microphone, I also want to thank our numerous and enthusiastic volunteers. Their dedication, kindness, and competence affirms my belief, my sincere belief in who we truly are as a community, and it keeps me going, which serving as the chair of the PPW and Mayor Pro Tem, I sometimes need some juice to keep me going for sure. I do want to begin with an update. We've been building the playground for 2 days now, a little bit of a rain delay this afternoon, but it's been going just beautifully. I'm sure you've all likely been following the progress as we're right in the heart of town. But I want to tell you what I see. I see the playground that was presented to you in October last year. It's coming to life. The new build is modern, it's safe, it's accessible, and it's welcoming to people of all ages and abilities. The main structures are nearly complete, including the concrete footings which were poured this morning. What I'm here for this evening is simply to ask that you once again approve your approval on a handful of features that lie outside the perimeter of the old playground. Each piece chosen for this playground has a purpose, either as a nod to our history, a broader appeal to children of all ages and capabilities, or learning and enrichment. When I asked for and received your unanimous approval for the playground, I went into deep detail about the process and design. I'm not going to waste your time this evening by going into that again, but I'm obviously happy here to answer any questions, and we have representatives from the Sinclair Group as well. So with that, I welcome any questions.
Thank you so much. Anything else?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to kind of run off our presentation to you this evening before we're happy to answer as many questions as the commission has. Certainly, there's been a lot of other points that have come up. A lot of them you touched on, Mr. Chair, concerns related to whether, noise relates to the Historic District Commission or whether this project was subject to zoning approval, and whether or not there's some sort of conflicts of interest that need to be addressed. And so I want to give the city's legal counsel, Jacob Whitty, just an opportunity to kind of touch on those pieces for you as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. So we'll start with zoning and noise, and there's not a lot that I have to Chair Straker's comments earlier. But I would just reiterate, so that the city code provides that the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness or a notice to proceed from the Historic District Commission does not absolve an applicant of the requirement to comply with zoning. So that is a consideration that is generally totally separate from the Historic District Commission. It's not something that's necessarily within your purview. Although I would note that the review guidelines, so section 1.6, says that if the HDC perceives a situation where a variance would be necessary to complete some kind of work that's in front of the HDC, then it can recommend to the Zoning Board of Appeals that a variance be issued. And that's something I kind of want to get in front of here and explain why that's not something you need to worry about. So there's been, I guess, statements made about allegations relating to that this is a non-conforming use that's being expanded in violation of the zoning ordinance, which typically an expansion of a non-conforming use is something that would require a variance. But this is a project that is not subject to city zoning at all. So this is a governmental function, and Michigan law provides that when a unit of government is involved in building something that constitutes a governmental function, it is exempt from zoning. And so how do we know what a governmental function is? So Michigan law says a governmental function is something that is expressly or impliedly mandated or authorized by constitution, statute, local charter, or ordinance, or other law. And the Home Rule City Act authorizes cities like the city of Saugatuck to acquire and construct public parks and recreation grounds. And so because the city is constructing a public park and recreation grounds, it is a governmental function that is exempt from zoning. So there is no variance to recommend to the Zoning Board of Appeals with this project. It is totally outside of the HDC's purview. The zoning of this is not a question. As it relates to noise, again, the city's regulations on noise, they're contained in Chapter 94 of the city code. The historic district regulations are in Chapter 152. From the city's perspective, there's nothing about its regulations about noise that have any bearing on the standards of approval that the Historic District Commission is going to review. Certainly the appropriate, members of the city staff or law enforcement or the city council, if there are violations of the noise ordinance, that would be their place to step in and enforce those as necessary. But it's outside of the considerations of chapter 152 of the city code. And then the last thing is we did receive some correspondence alleging potential conflicts of interests. And I just want to get on the record here and say that as a public official, just because you serve as a public official does not mean that you check your First Amendment rights at the door. It's okay to have opinions about things. And a conflict of interest is actually a term of art that arises when someone has a pecuniary or monetary interest in the outcome of a decision. And so if there are any commissioners here today that have a conflict of interest, meaning a pecuniary interest in the outcome of this decision, my preference would be to announce it, and then the commission can take a vote on whether or not that constitutes a conflict of interest. I don't see anyone coming forward with a pecuniary interest. And then so in that case, I assume all of you have the ability to evaluate this in the best interests of the city's historic district, and that no conflict exists. And so with those comments, unless there's any questions you have for Ryan, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Jake. And so it's the last piece for your knowledge. We've provided you with a sample motion for your consideration this evening, and happy to answer your questions.
Thank you. Laura, we'll start with you, because I think you had a question a few minutes back.
Ryan, thank you for that overview. Would you please confirm?
Could you go into the mic a little bit more? Sorry.
Yeah.
Would you please confirm for the commission, since you're withdrawing the spinner, what are the pieces that what are the features that we do need to be considering tonight? Would you confirm those for us, please?
I apologize, folks, that this isn't,
Gone over that.
yeah.
It's fine, but I would appreciate that clarity. Thank you.
Certainly. So, again, I apologize. We don't have maybe a different color on the pointer on the screen to help you see better. Yeah, that's probably true too. So anything north of this solid white, previous playground footprint boundary. So
That's
this is the Jeep,
the Jeep.
the Jeep, the mini Jeep, there's a mountain climber, there's a get a grip, a net wall, track ride, butterflies and flowers, pods. Jeremy, if I missed anything that hit them all, like I said, essentially, it's the additional features or anything that are outside of the previous playground footprint. So anything north of this, it's not working. Oh, boy.
That's great.
Well, that's just technology for you, isn't it? So, all right. So like I said, spinner is in this northwest corner is taken out.
Right.
But
Okay, that's helpful. In the packet, there was just much discussion about the canoe. Can you mention that? What are we doing with that tonight?
so the canoe was one of the main features that was approved previously. And initially it was, you can see on the screen, kind of maybe more in this area, kind of centered on the playground. We're asking for your approval to move that further south. There's a tree in this area that we're worried would be impacted. And so I feel it's a better location for the canoe would be further south.
Sarah, could you go to page 39 for that? Would you mind? Instead of looking at plan view, we might look at the render and have a
Sure.
better idea.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And I want to acknowledge for anyone that's seen the packet, I think this is Sinclair's, this is our plan dropped into a generic background. So don't try to find things,
Yeah.
landmarks around it.
Yeah, good suggestion, Mr. Chair. So the canoe here, as you can see, it's kind of on the lower part of your screen. That's going to be moving further south, so kind of this direction. So
Okay.
Towards the street.
yeah, towards Main Street. Yep. And then if we're looking at I'll do the overhead one to kind of give you a perspective. So another way to look at maybe the additional features are, if you look at these towers, those are part of the main features that were in the previous playground footprint. So anything kind of north of those. So this is the track ride in this area here. This is where that net wall is at. You get a grip in this area, a mountain climber. So this piece here is actually part of the main feature. So anything kind of, those pieces are additional. Those pieces are additional. The Jeep up here is additional. Again, all of these were on the original plans, but those are what's before you this evening for your reapproval.
Helpful to have it clarified. And so that we don't have to regroup again and you're withdrawing the spinner, what's the future call on that? Where will that go and how does that affect the discussion tonight?
Yeah, so as we just kind of got into construction, and it started yesterday into today, those discussions are still, early on. I have to have some further review with the designers and maybe Parks and Public Works Committee, maybe even the city council on, if we're going to construct that in the future, where's that going to go and what that's going to look like.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Will?
Just a question for you, since I'm directionally challenged with this. Which side is the Catherine's Maplewood Hotel on?
So the Maplewood Hotel is to the north, it's this way. So these additional features are towards the hotel.
Okay, and are we are we closer or are we the same as the original proposal was? Space-wise?
All the features are in the exact same location as they were on the approved plans. Yep.
Pardon?
Anything else, Will?
No, thank you.
Okay, stay on this side, John.
I just want to be, we've heard a lot about what we're not responsible for as the HTC. I want to be laser focused in on what we are, and that's streetscape compatibility. And there's parks around this, there's tennis courts, there's basketball, and there's, parks on each side of it. So I'm focusing on that, and I'm focusing on the accessibility. And I'd like to hear a little bit more about that, because that's the reason why some of these features moved, or the canoe for sure, right? That's part of the canoe. It didn't have enough space around it.
The canoe is
Well,
close to a tree.
The canoe, as originally designed, had enough space around it. It's just, the movement is more related to avoiding impacts on trees. All of and I'll turn this over to Sinclair and Ms. Baldwin, maybe I'm sorry, Diane, you're here. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I missed you there. So I apologize. This is a perfect opportunity to welcome Diane Sinclair. She designs playgrounds for a living, has been intimately involved with this and designing this, and can explain kind of why things were placed in the location that they were and the buffering that's needed to make them accessible. And so
Yeah,
thank you.
Just to add my question. Hi, Diane.
Okay.
The yellow lines that were around each item.
Yes.
It's my understanding, reading about universal design and things that were in the packet and other places, that you have to have a certain amount of space that goes around each
Correct.
item.
These are what we call safety zones. So nothing can impact around this area. So if you're using this track ride, for example, I need 6 feet here, and then this is next attached. So I need 6 feet of clear zone. So if a child's using that, they don't fall into the next piece. So the yellow lines are not encroaching zone. I can't have anything in that space. So I have to have that by law.
Mhm.
And that's governed by ASTM and CPSC guidelines. There's nothing else. We can't do anything about that. But I do want to answer a question that someone asked about why we had these features. And if you go back to the 3-dimensional view, that was really important. You're there for a couple reasons. It might look like it's just there for climbing, but when you design an accessible structure or an ADA unit,
Maybe overall.
yes, we got.
Okay.
If you're in a wheelchair, either a parent or a guardian or a grandparent or a child, and this is the only path that you have to play on, or the ramp units. You want to be able to play with your brother or sister, and you want to have alternate routes of travel. So you want to be able to get to this deck right here, and then to go to this one. But you don't want to walk right next to your sister, your brother who's in a wheelchair. You want to be able to find a different way to get there, so that you're playing with each other. So we have these alternate routes. So I'm here, and I'm going to try to get to here. Your brother is going to go this route, and it's going to race you there. And that's the reason why that's there. If you take this out, you're taking out a main feature of the accessible playground. Yes, the wheelchairs can still get there, but it's not going to be as fun. You're not going to have parallel play with your child, your friend, your parent, things like that. So that's the reason why we have different routes of travel. You'll find that all throughout the playground, there's different ways to get to different decks, and you're getting there by different means every time. But it also provides a graduated level of play, meaning that it's more difficult to do certain climbers. If you remember as a child, you might climb up vertically, but a vertical climb is a little easier than an angled climber where your upper body is angled. So we try to include vertical climbing, angled climbing, lateral climbing, as well as stuff with handholds. So everything is a little bit different, a little bit more difficult, more that you keep going on this playground. We want kids to come back and use it over and over and over again, and not just going, oh, that was fun. No, boy. This is meant to be something that an entire generation can use. We've got stuff for 2 to 5-year-olds, stuff for 5 to 12-year-olds, stuff for 13 plus, and adults.
Thank you. John, any other?
No, I just wanted to understand that a little more. Thank you,
But
Diane.
that's probably more than you asked for.
No, thank you.
Keith?
Yeah, I agree with John in that, it's a streetscape issue of those features, which we did approve previously, and they haven't moved their position. Also the canoe itself location from a streetscape compatibility or massing and scale. I don't see anything that violates anything that we already previously approved. That's all I got.
How do we incorporate Mr. Gardner in this?
Yeah, well, certainly we'll know for the minutes, Mr. Gardner's, what time he arrived, and he has every right to participate in any way. Yep.
So we'll acknowledge that Russ arrived at 6:50 and you have any questions?
No question, just I apologize for my late arrival. I thought the
worries.
meeting started at 7 and I was at a soccer game. Which
You thought you were early.
They told me they ended up getting postponed, so I
Oh, boy.
apologize.
We've gone around the table already. Any questions from the packet that
No,
you reviewed? Okay.
I have reviewed it, but I have no questions.
Okay. Can I just add one to John, Diane, maybe? Can on the added features, or really any of the features, can you give us a little bit of a primer beyond or maybe users of different abilities? So the Jeepster.
Oh, okay. Well, the Jeepster is designed for 2 factors. It is basically a passive climber. It's not meant to move. It's meant for children to just congregate, sit and play and have a manager play. When we design playgrounds, there's basically 7 different elements of a good playground. And you have all of them here. You've got your spinning, your sliding, your climbing, your balancing, your brachiating, which is upper body, imaginative play, and then social and emotional play. So music kind of falls in that too. We had intentionally added musical elements to this playground. Well, first, because Saugatuck has got arts and music, and that's one thing you're known for. But secondly, is if you're at this playground and you have any auditory issues, music is something that you can participate in. And if you don't have something that echoes or talks back to you or has some sort of sound, you're losing a little bit of that element of spontaneity and play as a child. So we always try to include music. We also find the adults like it, because we know when adults are going to go to the playground, if they're not engaged or active doing something, they may kind of not wander off, but leave. It's not as much fun. So we want to give them something else to do. The music is not very loud. I mean, you can bang it, make it loud, but it's not, it's a very tone, correct piece of their instrument. They actually have physical tones that you can play an actual song. It's not just banging on a loud drum. So we included that for that reason, for this particular playground, to make sure that we had something for every age group to participate, and as well as every child and every ability.
Great, that's helpful. Yeah, thank you.
Thank
I only asked because I thought that was important under sort of how different elements appear, where they sit, sort of stemming from what John asked around placement.
Well, a good question, yes, no,
Yeah.
I'll add to that statement, is that we know a lot of kids want to be right in the center of play, but we do know there's a very large element of children today that have are somewhere on this. And knowing that
they need a different place to kind of go and escape and get away from all the sensory overload. So we specifically have unique pieces that are by itself, so you don't have to be here with a lot of kids running around. You can kind of remove yourself, gather your thoughts, have a little quiet time, maybe talk to your friend or your parent, whomever, and play, and then jump back in. And it's not just a bench where you're obviously not playing, but this way you can kind of come off of the side and not be ostracized by your peers. So that's one of the other reasons we have several different spaces around it. The canoe is another one, a good example. It has rocking motion to it. And we know that some children on the spectrum love rocking and love spinning. And it's a calming influence on them while they're out there. So that's another reason why the canoe is kind of off to the side and in the back.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So I guess the last thing I'll say, and I don't know if anyone has more questions. I don't want to shortchange or move too quickly on this, but one more look at, in our packet on page 5 of new construction guidelines. We've covered streetscape, compatibility. We've covered architectural style and review. Compatibility of siding and massing. The original approved application doesn't come close to eclipsing anything around it. It's transparent, meaning it's not solid walled, so you can see through it, and it creates a sense of space. And pedestrian scale is not that dissimilar from what was there before.
No.
Is there any other part of the guideline that anyone wants to look at or ask about? Those are kind of the main 3 or 4 that were outlined in the packet.
And you're reading, Tim, from the consulting planning.
Correct. From page 3 to
Right,
5 or
got the
6.
5 here, right. I thought there were tremendous inconsistencies and repetition in that document, so I appreciate you clarifying that and going over that portion of it. Agree. A few more comments, if I may.
Please.
This was certainly a loaded packet. I think for the commissioners, it was just ongoing incoming from lots of constituents and attorneys and a lot to review. And it's a privilege to be able to do this and move this and try to get this resolved. It's amazing to me that something as joyous as a playground was not, tripped up somewhere. And unfortunately, we had a citizen who felt aggrieved, for better, for worse, who felt she had to bring litigation. And that's certainly not a position I would hope that the city would be in the future in any similar project. So I just wanted to make that statement. But I've read everything, as I know my diligent fellow commissioners have. Probably took a lot of time, and appreciate having all of those perspectives and able to sit here tonight and resolve it.
Thank you, Laura. Anybody else have any?
One last question on the spinner. Are we reapproving its position as is? Because there was some confusion about the spinner that's being put on hold. Is that going to be part of this statement?
Our motion.
Yeah.
If we make a motion,
Is
it
that-
will exclude the spinner.
Withdraw it.
Okay, so the spinner's taken out of this layout for
Correct.
this meeting, correct?
Correct. So the applicant might come back and add it at a later time when
Got it.
in a spot where it still
Yep.
performs as intended, but doesn't damage a tree.
All set.
I don't want to rush us. It's been this long. Anybody else have any other questions? Ross, anything you feel like you missed or you want to ask?
No, thank you, Chairman Straker. I appreciate everybody being here this evening. I appreciate the comment from Commissioner Godfrey. This has been a struggle for me personally. And I will not put on my council hat because that's a whole different discussion. However,
Mr. Gardner, I don't mean to cut you up. Could you speak into thank you. Sorry, I'm going to share one there.
this has been a struggle for me. Not so much from a standard standpoint. It's pretty straightforward in terms of what we have to measure this application against. But as I think Commissioner Godfrey alluded to, the fact that there's even animosity about a project like this is troubling to me. It's not something that I think looks good on the community. But I appreciate especially the presentation that we saw this evening with the design is certainly thought out. It's well thought. It's, meant to accommodate a number of different children, ages, developmental, et cetera. I'm just still troubled. I have to be honest about it. I'm troubled by it because of all the animosity that's going into this and for various reasons. So, thank you.
Keith, were you going to ask another question or no? That was it.
Just to follow up on the spinner, that will be put on the HDC agenda once it's relocated, or will that be administrative approval?
No, neither. My understanding is we're not considering it until it's considered. So it's up to the applicant to come back and say, we would like to add it and we would like to add it here. So until, don't call us, we'll call you. We're not going to, until we hear from someone asking for it.
Okay.
We're not voting on it, right?
But Keith, on
My
that,
question was, when it comes back,
right?
will it be on our regular agenda or will it be administratively approved?
Gotcha. It would be on our regular agenda.
Yeah, it would come back full,
Yeah,
full
just
commission.
Checking.
It's a good question. Sorry, I didn't get the question behind the question.
And that's relevant to a question I was asking earlier. If the spinner is now being withdrawn and and if we do approve these other things, how will this decision tonight affect any potential movement or decision on the spinner? Is it your recommendation that we wait till you get some determination on the spinner and then come back on all of this? I mean, do we have to move this whole plan again? Or not?
There's no way to know until the application presents and you know where it goes and what its scope is.
It's a big piece.
Correct. Yep. Yeah.
It's not like the little canoe or some of the other smaller pieces.
Yeah.
It's a considerable piece on that plan.
Right. Yeah, if it were moved to a different spot on the site, it may require movement of other features, but all of those would be brought back to you and for your approval to consider whether or not you were willing to move those pieces to accommodate the spinner if we're able to move forward and with that at some later date.
All right, and final question on that. Is it worth taking, how much time do you need to determine the spinner placement? Is it worth waiting for that and putting this all together once and for all instead of coming back a second time?
I think there's a lot to consider there that has to go through a lot of other discussions with maybe Parks and Public Works Committee, the City Council. We have Sinclair on sites, community members, that have volunteered that we've assuming you approve tonight. If you approve tonight, then we'll be working on those additional features as part of all of that and moving forward to at least get done what we can at this point in time. So
I really don't think we should worry about next on that.
Perfect.
That's kind of like nailing a cloud
Got it?
in terms of what's to come. And we should just wait for the application if it happens and then
Okay,
hear that application based on the is state of the playground at that time.
very good. Thank you.
So we have a lengthy prepared motion. A lot of reading. Would anyone like to make a motion and read it to us?
Sure, I'll read it.
You.
Stop me if I get it wrong. I move to approve and issue a certificate of appropriateness for the City of Saugatuck's Historic District Permit application herein known as application dated April 26, 2024 to number one, construct, thank you. Additional features, the additional features of the Village Square Park Playground as described in the application, with the exception of the spinner feature located in the northwest corner of the playground. And number two, modify the approved plans for the main features as described in the application to adjust the location of the canoe feature by moving it further south based on the following standards, findings of fact, and conditions of approval. Number one, the commission finds that the application provides all the supporting plans and documents required by section 152.07.b of the city code, including detailed narrative information, site plans, playground equipment details, current site photographs, and 3D renderings as specified in the city consulting planner report, herein known as planner report, dated May 3rd, 2024. Number two, the commission finds that the application meets the specific requirements of section 152.07.d.1, known as application and review procedure guidelines after consideration of A, the historical and architectural significance of the non-contributing resource of Village Square Park and the previous dilapidated playground. B, the compatibility of the exterior of the structure and the space around it with the visual and historical context of the surrounding area. C, the impact of the exterior of the structure on the character and contextual aesthetic of the city. And D, other factors such as the decommissioning recommendations of the existing playground due to dangerous priority 1 and 2 safety concerns documented in the ODC inspection report dated March 31st, 2023. Number 3, the commission further finds that the application satisfies the commission's requirements of the Historic Preservation Review Guidelines for new construction, including A, streetscape compatibility, B, architectural style, and C, compatibility of siting and massing such as historic relationship between buildings, landscape features and open space, height and bulk, and variation in siting or in height and bulk from the immediately surrounding buildings, compatible details, pedestrian scale, and distinguishing new from old features. Number 4, the commission's findings that the application satisfies the review guidelines and standards of section 152.07.d of the city code and commission's requirements of the Historic Preservation Review Guidelines for new construction are based on the following. A, the reasons set forth in the planner report, which recommends that the proposed additional features continue to be an appropriate addition to the historic district and will serve as an essential community amenity. B, the reasons stated in the applicant's narrative for HDC application for Village Square Park Playground modification dated April 26, 2024, submitted as part of the application along with the accompanying exhibits thereto. C, correspondence in the support of the playground, including the letter provided by Diane Sinclair, President of Sinclair Recreation, dated April 26, 2024, which notes that the design is a national demonstration site using all elements of play, historical elements that pay tribute to Saugatuck's past, multi-generational design, and structures that allow and encourage children of all abilities to play together. D, the reasons stated in the public comment in support of the application. E, the City Parks and Public Works Committee evaluation and approval of the original playground plans in 2023. F, the Commission's original unanimous approval of substantially the same plans, accepting the location of the canoe feature on October 5th, 2023. G, the City Council's approval of the original playground plans on October 9th, 2023. And H, the reasons stated by the members of the commission on the record. And then we have noted here, approval shall be subjected to the following conditions.
Believe we haven't.
I don't think we had any, because I did note that the spinner was taken out. I hadn't read this.
That's right.
So.
Thank you for reading that. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, John. Seconded. Is there any more discussion or dialogue on this? Okay, I'll call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying yes.
Yeah.
Yes, opposed? Okay, happy to do a roll call.
Straker,
Yes.
Patterson,
Yes.
Canarza.
Yes.
Donahue,
Yes.
Gardner,
No.
Godfrey,
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Are there any administrative approvals or updates that follow?
None from staff, Mr. Chair.
Is there any communication? We have a number of people listed here in communication. I assume that is for what's already in the packet?
Correct. And we forwarded additional correspondence as we received it today, so that way you were able to review that.
Thank you.
And
Are
printed
there
it.
additional public comments? Yes. Oops, sorry. I think Catherine had her hand up. Catherine, do you want to come up first?
Leonard Young, Saugatuck Township. Thank you much for following your guidelines and reaffirming what you had already said. I want to calm some fears related to some misinformation tonight before they get legs and crawl out of here and amplify. There is no amplified sound at the playground. Amplified would mean there's an amplification system there, and there is not. They are not speakers either. They are musical instruments that look like nature. And so before you make any decisions about that and how loud they are, I suggest you go over there and actually play them. They're very nice, they're very pleasant, they're very low tone. And when we were looking at those, I actually did an extensive search online to look at the decibels. And, you know, they're well within whatever the regulations are, and that was confirmed by Sinclair, so thank you. The musical instruments were always a part of the playground. No, we did not talk about that one in detail. There were, I think, 3 or 4 pages of instruments or equipment pieces that were included in there, and we couldn't speak to each one individually, but they were included in the plan. They always have been in the plan. That never changed. There is no 12-foot drop. Never would Sinclair allow that, or would anybody allow that. The playground is still being built. There's a huge hole that will be filled in, so the bottom will come up. The towers are not done being constructed, so if there looks like there's a place to fall off, there will not be when it's done. So absolutely no 12-foot drop. Let's not let that get legs. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenna. Catherine, did you want to say something?
Catherine Simon, 428 Butler. A couple of things. First off, I haven't seen anyone at my site, and believe me, I've been watching. I did invite the two of you, Mr. Cummins and Mr. Whitty, when my attorney and I met with you. And I asked you to please come over to my property. Do you recall that?
Yeah, I'm not going to engage in a dialogue during public comment.
Okay. Well, I did invite both of these gentlemen. Anyone can come in the hotel. There's always coffee going, etc. And your response to me was, I have no need to come over to your property. Anyone could look into your window. I purposely invited you so that you could see this from my perspective. All right? And I even said to you at that night, and I'd like Miss Godfrey to know this, I said to you that afternoon how uncomfortable it was for me to be taking the action I was. Do you recall that? No one remembers anything. It's exceedingly uncomfortable for me to be suing the city. I have been a contributor, a resident, and a taxpayer for 35 years. And I find it appalling that I have taken this position. But I own a historic asset in the community, and I have a moral obligation to defend it for my own investment and my family. That's exactly what I said to the two of you with my attorney here. So if anyone wants to come and take a look at room 105, where that Jeep will be right at the bottom of your feet, because there's a distance perception, you're welcome to come over. And this all could have been circumvented many months ago. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Catherine. Anyone else? Anyone? Oh, yes, sir. Sorry, I see someone on Zoom. I'll get right back to you.
Barry Johnson, resident of Saugatuck on Main Street. You know, my big rub, we're answered some of them anyways, and that this is not a zoning thing, this is a historic thing. So I think you guys did a really good, Tim, really good job. I also was reminded about by the attorney that the historic approval does not absolve it from zoning, but in fact, the government function exempt from zoning approval. So that kind of cuts the legs out of it. And so my biggest concerns, and I think you guys did a good job, so, but I don't agree with it. But my biggest rub is it was outside the footprint that I felt assured way back when that they were going to stay within the footprint. And I wasn't really on top of the noise thing. I didn't know about the stylophones and stuff because I know what it's like after last call in Saugatuck. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. And we have a Zoomer, looks like I can't read it. Gary Medler.
Yes, Gary
Sarah,
Medler.
can you start the
461
timer? Thank you.
Gary Medler, 461 Vine Street. Clarification, the city isn't exempt through the government function. Under the Local Historic Districts Act, the state of Michigan imposed the obligations of that act and therefore the historic regulations on the city. And the historic regulations require that the city comply with the zoning district regulations in place under our city code. The playground was a non-conforming use. Any expansion outside the original footprint is a non-conforming use that's not permissible. So tonight you approved a variance to a non-conforming expansion, which you did not have authority for. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Are there any commission comments? Right. Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Yes, sorry, I missed you, Russ.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Straker. I just want to sincerely apologize to my fellow commissioners and to the public for arriving late to the meeting. My sincere apologies. I just want to again state that my no vote this evening was based on my understanding of what we had to apply standard-wise to the additional features. I voted yes on the playground back on October 5th of 2023 at City Council. I am in support of the playground. As a matter of fact, I've got a long history with this playground with Catherine Simon back in 1995. I actually opposed the upgrade to the equipment that was removed because I thought the old equipment was fine. So I've had some history here and it's a learning experience for me as to how this should work. And again, I just want to, say thank you to Sinclair. They did the bit that I saw is very thoughtful and obviously it's well done. It's a good design. I want to thank all the volunteers as well. They've been helping on the community build as well. This is a struggle for me. And I hope that my no vote is taken in the context of where I'm coming from on this. It was a reasoned decision on my part. I'm in support of the playground.
Thank you. I guess I would end this. I have one commission comment with two thoughts. One is, I hope y'all come back when we're talking about windows and doors. Because it's interesting
Yeah.
too.
Ronnie.
But number two, I just wish, I think to Laura, to what you spoke to, I just wish on all of these issues, this or anything else, everyone would start believing positive intent. Catherine had positive intent for her concerns. Everyone had positive intent for the position they were starting from. I think we would get to a better place if we just believed that and assumed that. And that's, I think what this commission tried to do both times and what we always try to do. So I wish every part of this awesome little city organization would have that front and center.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Adjourn. I move to adjourn.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Keith? All in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? All right, we're adjourned.
Very nice job.
Motion to-
You're,